He threw the divorce papers at her chest and laughed, telling everyone within earshot that he was finally trading in his dowdy wife for a younger, hotter model. Derek Sterling thought he had won. He had the high-paying job, the penthouse, and the mistress-turned-fiancée. He left Sarah with nothing but the clothes on her back and a broken heart. But Derek made one fatal calculation. He didn't know that the homeless old man Sarah had been feeding for months wasn't a beggar at all. He was the owner of the very empire Derek was desperate to join. And he had just died, leaving everything to the woman Derek just threw away. The ink on the divorce papers was barely dry when Derek Sterling checked his Rolex, a Submariner he'd bought with their joint savings account 3 months ago, without asking. "Are we done here?" Derek asked, not even looking at Sarah. He was too busy texting on his phone, a smirk playing on his lips. "I have a reservation at Le Bernardin at 8. Tiffany gets cranky if she has to wait for her lobster." Sarah Jensen sat across the cold metal table of the arbitration room, her hands folded tightly in her lap to stop them from shaking. She looked at the man she had supported for 7 years. She had worked double shifts at a diner to put him through business school. She had ironed his shirts, cooked his meals, and comforted him when he failed his first licensing exams. "Derek," Sarah whispered, her voice raspy, "you're taking the apartment and the car. How am I supposed to get to work?" Derek finally looked up. His eyes, once warm and blue, were now cold shards of ice. He let out a cruel, barking laugh. "Sarah, look at you. You're a waitress. You can take the bus. That apartment is for people who matter. People with a future. And let's be honest. You were just a placeholder until I found someone who matches my new tax bracket." The door to the conference room opened, and in walked Tiffany. She was 22, blonde, and wearing a coat that cost more than Sarah made in a year. She didn't acknowledge Sarah. She just walked up to Derek and draped herself over his shoulder. "Babe, the valet is waiting," Tiffany whined, popping a piece of gum. "Just finishing up the trash removal, Tiff," Derek said, standing up and buttoning his Italian suit jacket. He looked down at Sarah one last time. "Don't contact me. My lawyer will send you the schedule for when you can pick up your boxes of whatever junk you have left. Oh, and Sarah, try to marry rich next time. Although at 30 your odds aren't looking good." He tossed a $20 bill onto the table as if he were tipping a bad server. "For the bus fare," he sneered. They walked out, their laughter echoing down the hallway. Sarah sat in the silence of the room, the $20 bill staring up at her. It was the ultimate insult. She didn't scream. She didn't flip the table. She simply stood up, her legs feeling like lead, and walked out into the pouring rain. She had a shift at the Rusty Spoon in an hour, and she couldn't afford to be late. Her life as she knew it was over. But she had no idea that her real life was about to begin. 3 months later, Sarah's life had settled into a gray, exhausting rhythm. She was living in a cramped studio apartment that smelled of mildew, working 60 hours a week at the Rusty Spoon, a rundown diner on the edge of the city's industrial district. It was a Tuesday, pouring rain again. The bell above the door jingled, and a gust of cold wind blew in. "Hey, you get out!" The manager, a sweaty man named Rick, shouted from behind the counter. Standing in the doorway was a man who looked like he hadn't bathed in weeks. His coat was held together by duct tape. His beard was matted, and he was shivering violently. He was known around the neighborhood as Old Artie. Most people crossed the street to avoid him. "I just wanted some water," the old man wheezed, clutching his chest. "Water is for paying customers. Scram before I call the cops," Rick yelled, reaching for the phone. "Stop," Sarah said, stepping out from behind the counter. She looked tired, her eyes dark-circled, but her voice was firm. "Put the phone down, Rick." "Sarah, if you feed him, he's never going to leave. It's bad for business," Rick spat. "There's nobody in here, Rick," Sarah countered, gesturing to the empty diner. She walked over to the old man and gently took his arm. "Come on, Artie. Take the booth in the back near the radiator. It's warmer there." She sat him down. The old man looked at her with watery gray eyes. He was trembling. "I don't have any money, miss," he whispered, ashamed. "Did I ask for money?" Sarah smiled softly, a rare expression these days. I'm making a fresh pot of coffee, and the chef made too much beef stew today. If someone doesn't eat it, it's just going to go to waste." It was a lie. Sarah paid for the stew out of her own tips every time Artie came in. She brought him a steaming bowl and a hot mug. As he ate, his hands shaking so hard the spoon clattered against the ceramic, Sarah sat opposite him. She didn't treat him like a charity case. She treated him like a friend. "How are you holding up, Sarah?" Artie asked, his voice stronger after the soup. "That ex-husband of yours, he's still bothering you?" Sarah sighed, looking out the window. "I saw his picture in the paper yesterday. He's closing a massive deal with the Pendleton Group. He's buying a yacht, and I'm worried about making rent, Artie." Artie paused, his spoon hovering midway to his mouth. "The Pendleton Group, you say?" "Yeah, big real estate empire. Derek, my ex, says he's going to be the youngest vice president in the city once he seals the deal with the owner." Sarah laughed bitterly. "He always gets what he wants." Artie lowered his head, hiding a strange glint in his eye. "The owner of the Pendleton Group is a hard man to please, I hear. Maybe Derek shouldn't count his chickens." Sarah reached across the table and patted Artie's grimy hand. "You have quite the imagination, Artie. Eat your soup." "You're a good woman, Sarah," Artie said, his voice suddenly very serious. "You have a pure heart. The world hasn't broken you even though it tried. Remember that." "Thanks, Artie." That was the last time Sarah saw him. 2 days later, Artie didn't show up. A week later, Rick told her that the ambulance had picked up an old John Doe in the alleyway 2 blocks down. He had passed away from pneumonia. Sarah cried in the walk-in freezer for 10 minutes. He was just a homeless man to everyone else, but he was the only person who had listened to her for months. She bought a single white rose with her tip money and left it in the alley where he used to sleep. She thought that was the end of it. The letter arrived via certified mail at the diner. It was thick, creamy stationery with a gold-embossed letterhead, Blackwood and Thorne Attorneys at Law. Sarah's hands shook as she opened it. She thought it was a lawsuit. Maybe Derek was suing her for spousal support just to be spiteful. "Dear Ms. Jensen, you are hereby requested to attend the reading of the last will and testament of Mr. Arthur H. Pendleton. The reading will take place this Friday at 10:00 a.m. at the Pendleton Tower. Arthur Pendleton." Sarah frowned. "I don't know an Arthur Pendleton." She almost threw it away, thinking it was a scam. But the address was real, the tallest skyscraper in the city. On Friday, Sarah put on her only nice outfit, a black dress she used to wear to Derek's office parties, and took the subway to the financial district. She felt incredibly small standing in the marble lobby of Pendleton Tower. When she reached the top floor, the receptionist ushered her into a boardroom that was larger than her entire apartment building. The view of the city was breathtaking. And there, sitting at the mahogany table, was Derek. He was laughing loudly, chatting with a severe-looking man in a suit. Tiffany was next to him, scrolling on her phone, looking bored. When Derek saw Sarah, he choked on his water. "What on earth are you doing here?" Derek demanded, standing up. "Did you follow me? Sarah, this is a private legal meeting. I'm about to close the acquisition of the Century. Get out before I call security." "I was invited," Sarah said, holding up the letter. Derek snatched it from her hand. "A forgery. Has to be. Why would the late Arthur Pendleton invite a waitress to his will reading? You probably don't even know who he is." "I don't," Sarah admitted quietly. "But they sent me this." "Mr. Sterling, sit down," the severe lawyer said. This was Liam Thorne, the executor of the estate. He was young, perhaps mid-30s, with intense green eyes and a jawline that could cut glass. He looked at Sarah, and his expression softened imperceptibly. "Ms. Jensen is the guest of honor." "Guest of honor?" Tiffany scoffed. "Does she get a consolation prize, a toaster?" "Silence," Liam commanded. The room went cold. Liam pressed a button on the table. A massive screen descended from the ceiling. Mr. Pendleton recorded a video message 2 days before his passing. He requested that it be played only when all parties were present. The screen flickered to life. Derek straightened his tie, looking smug. Here we go. The old man probably left the company to the highest bidder. That's me. The image resolved. It was an old man sitting in a leather chair. He was clean-shaven, wearing a suit that cost more than a car. But the eyes... Sarah gasped. "Artie," she whispered. Derek looked confused. "Who?" On the screen, the billionaire Arthur Pendleton spoke. His voice was strong, commanding, but with a familiar warmth. "If you are watching this, I have moved on to the next great adventure. To my board of directors, thank you for your service. To the vultures trying to buy my company." The camera zoomed in slightly. "Specifically you, Derek Sterling." Derek puffed out his chest. "That's me. He knows me." "I know you well, Mr. Sterling," the video Arthur continued. "I know you because I've been watching you. I know that you are a man who measures worth by the price of a watch. I know you treat your subordinates like cattle. And I know how you treated your wife." Derek's face went pale. Tiffany stopped chewing her gum. "You see," Arthur continued, "I believe that before someone inherits power, they must prove they have humanity. For the last 6 months, I have lived on the streets of this city as a social experiment. I wanted to see who would help a man who had nothing to offer in return." On the screen, Arthur leaned forward. "Thousands of people walked past me. They spat on me. But one person gave me her tips. She gave me hot soup. She listened to me when I was invisible. She defended me when others wanted to throw me in the gutter." Arthur smiled, and it was the same smile he gave Sarah over the bowl of stew. "To my nephew, I leave my vintage car collection. To my charities, I leave 10% of my liquid assets. And the rest? My majority share in Pendleton Industries, my real estate portfolio, the grand estate in the Hamptons, and my personal bank accounts totaling approximately $4.2 billion. The room was so silent you could hear a heart break. "I leave to Sarah Jensen, because she was the only one who treated Artie like a human being." The screen went black. For 10 seconds, nobody moved. Then Derek jumped up, knocking his chair over. "This is a joke. She's a waitress. She served him soup. You can't give $1 billion company to a waitress." Liam Thorne stood up, picking up a thick stack of documents. He walked over to Sarah, ignoring Derek completely. "It is no joke, Mr. Sterling," Liam said coolly. He placed the documents in front of a stunned Sarah. "Ms. Jensen, or should I say Ms. CEO, we have a lot of work to do. And the first order of business involves the pending contract with Mr. Sterling's firm." Liam turned to Derek, a small, satisfied smile playing on his lips. "Sarah," Liam asked, his voice low and respectful, "Mr. Sterling is currently in the lobby of your building asking to buy your company. Would you like to proceed with the deal?" Sarah looked at Derek. He was sweating, his eyes darting around in panic. He looked at Tiffany, who was staring at Sarah with open-mouthed jealousy. Sarah slowly stood up. The fear was gone. In its place was a cold, burning realization of power. "No," Sarah said clearly. "I don't think I do." The silence that followed Sarah's rejection of Derek's deal was broken by the sharp sound of Liam Thorne closing the leather portfolio. "You heard the lady," Liam said, his voice like granite. "Mr. Sterling, your proposal is denied. Security will escort you and your associate out of the building." Derek looked like he'd been struck by lightning. His perfect tan seemed to fade into a sickly gray. "Sarah, wait. You don't know what you're doing. This is business. You're a waitress. You can't run an empire. You need me." Liam stepped in front of Sarah, blocking Derek's view. He didn't say a word. He just stared Derek down with those intense green eyes, until Derek took an involuntary step back. Tiffany tugged on Derek's arm. "Derek, let's go. Everyone is looking at us. This place smells like old people anyway." 2 burly security guards materialized. Derek, sputtering and red-faced, was practically dragged to the elevator, Tiffany trailing behind him, complaining about her heels. When the elevator doors pinged shut, Sarah's knees gave out. She grabbed the edge of the mahogany table to stop herself from falling. The adrenaline crashed, replaced by a tidal wave of panic. Oh my God. What did I just do, Liam? I can't do this. Derek was right. I serve coffee. I don't run billion-dollar corporations. Artie made a mistake. Liam gently took her arm and led her to the plush leather chair Derek had vacated. He poured her a glass of water from a crystal carafe. Arthur Pendleton didn't make mistakes, Sarah, Liam said softly, kneeling beside her chair so he wasn't towering over her. He was the shrewdest judge of character I've ever met. He watched you for 6 months. He saw something in you that this whole city is missing: integrity. Integrity doesn't read spreadsheets, Sarah mumbled into the glass. That's what I'm here for, Liam said. I was Arthur's right hand for 10 years. Now I'm yours, if you'll have me. Sarah looked at him. He was devastatingly handsome, yes, but more than that, he looked solid. Reliable, the opposite of Derek. Okay, she whispered. Where do we start? First. Liam stood up, a small smile touching his lips. We get you out of that diner uniform. You have a board meeting in 2 hours. The rest of the afternoon was a blur of terrifying luxury. Liam whisked her away in a black limousine that seemed longer than her entire apartment. They went to a private boutique where assistants who spoke in hushed tones draped her in fabrics she didn't know existed. When she stepped out of the dressing room in a tailored navy power suit that cost more than her car, she barely recognized herself in the mirror. Her tired eyes looked sharper. Her posture straightened. But the clothes were armor, and underneath she was still terrified. The boardroom was intimidating. 12 older men, all in expensive gray suits, sat around the table. They looked at her with a mix of curiosity and barely concealed disdain. They were wolves waiting for the lamb to trip. Gentlemen, Liam announced, walking in behind her, may I introduce your new CEO and chairman of the board, Ms. Sarah Jensen. There was a scattered polite applause. One man with slicked-back silver hair and eyes like a shark didn't clap. This was Marcus Cole, the CFO. He had expected to take over when Arthur died. Ms. Jensen, Marcus said smoothly, his voice dripping with condescension. A tragic day. We're all in shock. Now we were in the middle of discussing the layoffs at the Ohio manufacturing plant before this interruption. We need to cut 500 jobs to boost this quarter's profits for the shareholders. He slid a complex graph across the table towards her, enjoying the panic flashing in her eyes. He was trying to humiliate her instantly. Sarah looked at the graph. It meant nothing to her. The lines and numbers swam before her eyes. She felt the sweat trickling down her back. Derek's voice echoed in her head. You're trash, Sarah. She felt Liam tense beside her. He was about to step in to save her. No, Sarah thought. Artie left this to me, not Liam. She pushed the graph back. I don't understand this graph, Mr. Cole. A few snickers around the table. Marcus smirked. Well, as I anticipated. But I do understand people. Sarah interrupted, her voice shaking slightly but gaining strength. You want to fire 1,500 families. Why? To increase the stock value by 3%, Marcus said dismissively. It's standard practice. Sarah thought about Artie shivering in the booth. She thought about the single mothers she worked with at the diner, terrified of losing a shift. Arthur, told the world he valued humanity over profit, Sarah said, standing up. The room went quiet. If we fire those people just to make a line on a graph go up slightly, we are spitting on his legacy. Find another way to save money. The Ohio plant stays open. That is my first directive. Marcus turned purple. You can't just, this is absurd. You're emotional. This is incompetence. This is my company, Marcus, Sarah said flatly, channeling an authority she didn't know she possessed. Liam, move on to the next item. Marcus leaned back, fuming, his eyes promising retribution. Liam looked at Sarah with a new expression, undisguised awe. She had survived the first round, but she knew the war had just begun. 3 weeks later, Derek Sterling was sitting in a much smaller, much dingier apartment than the penthouse he'd kicked Sarah out of. His sure-thing deal with Pendleton had evaporated, and with it his massive promotion bonus. He was hemorrhaging money. Tiffany was currently screaming at him from the bedroom because her credit card had been declined at Sephora. He turned on the TV, nursing a cheap whiskey. The evening news was on, and tonight is the annual Pendleton Charity Gala, the most exclusive event of the season. All eyes are on the mysterious heiress, Sarah Jensen, the former waitress who inherited the entire empire last month. Critics are calling her the Cinderella CEO, while Wall Street is holding its breath to see if she'll crash and burn. The screen showed live footage of the red carpet outside the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Limousines were pulling up, depositing the city's elite. Derek stared at the screen, a toxic mix of rage and regret boiling in his gut. That should have been him. That power. That money. It was all hers. The woman he used to order around was now the most powerful person in the city. "Tiffany!" Derek yelled. "Get dressed. We're going out." "Where we're broke, Derek." "We're going to that gala. I'm going to fix this." Derek still had his connections. He called in a favor from a slimy PR guy he knew and managed to get 2 last-minute tickets meant for a B-list celebrity who got the flu. When Derek and a sullen Tiffany arrived at the museum, the air smelled of expensive perfume and desperation. Photographers lined the red carpet, their flashes blinding. And then the entrance hall went silent. At the top of the grand staircase stood Sarah. She was wearing a custom Versace gown, a shimmering cascade of deep emerald silk that made her eyes pop. Around her neck was the Pendleton diamond, a priceless heirloom Arthur's mother used to wear. Her hair, once always tied back in a messy bun, was styled in elegant waves. She didn't look like a waitress playing dress-up. She looked like a queen surveying her kingdom. On her arm was Liam Thorne, looking devastating in a tuxedo. The way he looked at her with protective reverence made Derek want to vomit. "Oh my God," Tiffany whispered, actually impressed. "Is that Sarah?" Derek didn't answer. He just started walking up the stairs, pushing past senators and oil tycoons. He had to get to her. He had to remind her who she was, who they were. Sarah was in the middle of a polite conversation with the mayor when she felt a tap on her shoulder. "Sarah, you look unbelievable." She turned. When she saw Derek, her stomach clenched. It was a reflex, years of conditioning to be afraid of his disapproval. But then she felt the weight of the diamond around her neck. She felt Liam step closer to her back. "Derek," she said coolly, "I didn't think you were on the guest list. Tickets were $25,000 apiece. Hope you didn't stretch yourself too thin." Derek winced. "Sarah, please. Can we talk privately just for a minute? For old time's sake." Liam stepped forward. "Ms. Jensen is busy, Mr. Sterling." "It's okay, Liam," Sarah said, holding up a hand. She looked at Derek, really looked at him. He looked tired. His suit was slightly wrinkled. The arrogance in his eyes was replaced by a frantic, hungry panic. He used to look like a god to her. Now he just looked small. "5 minutes, Derek. On the balcony." They stepped out onto the stone balcony overlooking Central Park. The night air was cool. "Sarah, I messed up." Derek began running a hand through his hair. He turned on the charm, the same practiced smile that had made her fall for him 10 years ago. "I was an idiot. I got caught up in the stress of work and Tiffany. She was just a distraction, a midlife crisis." Sarah said nothing, her face unreadable. He stepped closer, reaching for her hands. She let him take them. His palms were sweaty. "I miss us, Sarah. We were a team. Remember, you and me against the world. I can help you. You're drowning in this, I know you are. Let me come back. Let me help you run the company. We can be the power couple of the century. I still love you, baby." He leaned in to kiss her. It would be so easy. It was familiar. It was the apology she had dreamt of for months. Sarah pulled her hands away sharply. "You don't love me, Derek," she said, her voice devoid of emotion. "You love the emerald dress. You love the diamond necklace. You love the $4 billion. That's not true." "It is," she said. "When I was wearing an apron and smelling like diner grease, I was trash you needed to take out. Now that I have Arthur's money, suddenly I'm your baby again. You're pathetic." Derek's mask slipped. The charm vanished, replaced by the cruel sneer she knew so well. "Don't get high and mighty with me, Sarah. You're a fraud. You're going to run this company into the ground within 6 months, and when you do, I'll be there to laugh." "Get out of my sight, Derek," Sarah whispered, turning away to look at the city lights. "Before I have security throw you down the stairs this time." Derek stormed back inside. Sarah took a deep, shuddering breath, fighting back tears. It hurt. It still hurt to see the man she loved turn into a monster. Liam appeared in the doorway holding 2 glasses of champagne. He didn't ask what happened. He just handed her a glass. "You did good," he said softly. Sarah clinked her glass against his. "I think I hate champagne." She managed a weak smile. "We can get a burger after this," Liam promised. "My treat." Sarah finally genuinely smiled. For the first time in what felt like years, she didn't feel alone. Meanwhile, across the ballroom, Derek was downing his 4th scotch at the open bar. A shadow fell over him. It was Marcus Cole, the shark-eyed CFO who hated Sarah. "Rough night, Mr. Sterling," Marcus murmured, swirling his own drink. Derek glared at him. "What do you want?" "I saw your little reunion on the balcony," Marcus said slyly. "It seems we both have a problem with the new management. She's incompetent, emotional. She's going to ruin everything Arthur built." Marcus leaned in close, his voice a serpentine whisper. "You know her weaknesses, Derek. You know where the bodies are buried in her past. I know the company. If we work together, we can expose her for the fraud she is. We can take it all from her." Derek looked at Marcus. Then he looked across the room at Sarah, laughing at something Liam was saying, the camera flashes illuminating her joy. The envy burned in his chest like acid. "I'm listening," Derek said. For 2 months, things seemed to be going impossibly well. Under Sarah's human-first leadership, Pendleton Industries wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. Public perception had shifted. The Cinderella CEO was a media darling. The Ohio plant which she saved had doubled its production efficiency out of sheer loyalty to her. Sarah sat in her office signing paperwork. She felt confident. She looked at the empty chair across from her where Liam usually sat. He was currently in London negotiating a merger. She missed him, more than she wanted to admit. Her secretary, a kind woman named Martha, buzzed in. "Ms. Jensen, the board has called an emergency meeting. They say it's urgent." "Now," Sarah frowned. "I didn't call a meeting." "It was called by Mr. Cole." Sarah's stomach dropped. She grabbed her notebook and headed to the boardroom. When she entered, the atmosphere was suffocating. The blinds were drawn. The 12 board members were staring at her in stony silence. At the head of the table sat Marcus Cole, and standing next to him, looking smugger than a cat with a canary, was Derek Sterling. "What is he doing here?" Sarah demanded, remaining standing. "He is not an employee, and he is banned from the building." "Mr. Sterling is here as a witness," Marcus said, his voice smooth as oil. He slid a black folder across the table. "Sarah, we have received some disturbing evidence regarding the validity of Arthur Pendleton's will." Sarah laughed nervously. "The will was probated months ago. It's ironclad." "Not if it was coerced," Derek piped up. He walked around the table enjoying the spotlight. "You see, ladies and gentlemen of the board, I was married to Sarah for 7 years. I know her handwriting. I know her tricks. And I know that she met Artie long before she claims." Derek pulled a stack of photos from his jacket pocket and tossed them onto the table. They were grainy, photoshopped images that looked like Sarah arguing with Artie in an alleyway, looking menacing. These photos suggest you were harassing Mr. Pendleton, Marcus added. And we have a witness statement from a Tiffany Miller claiming she heard you bragging about forcing the old man to sign the papers while he was delirious with fever. That is a lie, Sarah shouted, slamming her hand on the table. Tiffany is his girlfriend. She'd say anything he tells her to. And then there's the matter of the embezzlement, Marcus interrupted, raising his voice. He clicked a remote and the screen behind him flared to life. It showed bank transfers moving millions of dollars from the Pendleton Charity Fund into a mysterious offshore account in the Cayman Islands. The account name S.J. Holdings. I didn't move that money, Sarah gasped. The room was spinning. The transfer authorization came from your computer using your password at 2:00 a.m. last night, Marcus said, shaking his head with mock sadness. We have the IT logs. It seems the pressure of the job got to you, Sarah. You wanted a golden parachute before the company realized you were incompetent. Derek stole my passwords. Sarah pointed a trembling finger at her ex-husband. He knows my old passwords. He guessed them. I haven't seen you in months, Sarah. Derek lied smoothly, looking at the board members with wide, innocent eyes. I'm just here to do the right thing. Arthur Pendleton was a titan. He shouldn't be ripped off by my ex-wife. Marcus stood up. Sarah Jensen, pending a federal investigation, the board is invoking Article 15. You are immediately suspended as CEO. Security will escort you out. You can't do this. Liam will. Mr. Thorne is in London, Marcus sneered. And by the time he gets back, the police will already have you in custody. 2 security guards, new ones, men Sarah didn't recognize, grabbed her arms. Get off me, Sarah screamed. She caught Derek's eye one last time as she was dragged out. He wasn't smiling anymore. He was mouthing one word: karma. Thrown out onto the sidewalk in the pouring rain, stripped of her company, her reputation, and her dignity, Sarah stood alone. The paparazzi were already there, tipped off by Marcus. Flashbulbs exploded in her face like lightning. Sarah, did you steal the money? Sarah, did you fake the will? She covered her face and ran. She didn't go to her luxury apartment. She ran to the subway. She ran back to the only place that felt real. She ran to the alleyway behind the Rusty Spoon. The rain in the city didn't wash things clean. It just made the grime slicker. Sarah sat on a plastic milk crate in the alleyway behind the Rusty Spoon. It was the exact spot where she had first found Artie shivering 3 months ago. The irony wasn't lost on her. In fact, it felt like a physical weight crushing her chest. She was wearing a $3,000 suit that was now ruined, soaked through with muddy water, and smelling of the dumpster beside her. Her hair, styled that morning by a celebrity hairdresser, was plastered to her skull. She checked her phone. It was blowing up with notifications. TMZ Cinderella CEO escorted out in handcuffs. Financial Times embezzlement scandal. Rocks Pendleton empire. Text from Derek. I told you not to play with the big boys. She threw the phone into a puddle. It splashed and went dark. I failed you, Artie, she whispered, her voice cracking. The sound was swallowed by the hum of the city traffic. You gave me everything and I let them take it. Derek was right. I'm just a waitress. I was never meant to be a queen. She hugged her knees, burying her face. She waited for the inevitable, the police sirens, the arrest warrant, the end of her life. You know, a deep, familiar voice cut through the sound of the rain. Arthur once told me that the measure of a CEO isn't how they cut a ribbon. It's how they handle the knife in their back. Sarah's head snapped up. Standing at the mouth of the alley, silhouetted against the streetlights, was Liam Thorne. He looked like a wreck. His usually pristine tie was undone. His trench coat was soaked, and he was breathing hard as if he had run 10 blocks. A black town car was idling curbside with its door open, but Liam was ignoring it. Liam! Sarah choked out, standing up on shaky legs. You're supposed to be in London. The merger. To hell with the merger. Liam growled, striding toward her. He didn't care about the mud or the smell. He walked straight up to her and wrapped his hands around her upper arms, holding her steady. His eyes were blazing with an intensity she had never seen before. "I saw the alert on the Bloomberg terminal. CEO suspended for fraud." I turned the jet around over the Atlantic. "It's true, Liam." Sarah sobbed, the fight draining out of her. "Or at least they made it look true. They have logs. They have bank transfers. Derek, he knew my old passwords. He and Marcus set me up. I can't fight them. They have the board, the police, the press. I have nothing." "You have me," Liam said. The words were simple, but they hit Sarah with the force of a freight train. He let go of one of her arms to reach into the inside pocket of his drenched coat. He pulled out a small leather-bound notebook. It was tattered, held together by ancient rubber bands, the leather worn smooth by decades of use. Sarah frowned, wiping water from her eyes. "Is that Artie's journal? The one he carried when he was homeless?" "The very same," Liam said. "He gave it to me the night he passed away. He made me swear not to open the back section unless the company was in mortal peril. I respected his privacy. I thought he meant a hostile takeover by a rival firm." Liam ripped the wax seal on the back pages of the notebook. His hands were trembling slightly, not from cold but from rage. "Arthur didn't trust Marcus Cole," Liam explained, scanning the handwritten pages under the dim alley light. He knew Marcus was skimming off the top, but he couldn't prove it before he got sick. And he knew that if he left the company to anyone other than Marcus, Marcus would try to destroy them. Liam's eyes stopped moving. He read a passage, then looked up at Sarah. A slow, terrifyingly cold smile spread across his face. It was a predator's smile, sharp and dangerous. "Oh, you brilliant, paranoid old fox," Liam whispered. "What?" Sarah asked, stepping closer. "What does it say?" "It says," Liam looked at her, his voice steady, "that we need to go back to the tower, right now." "I can't go back there. Liam's security will throw me out. The police are probably already there." "Let them be there," Liam said, taking her hand. His grip was iron. "Sarah, listen to me. You are not a waitress. You are Sarah Jensen, the woman who showed kindness when no one was watching. Arthur didn't pick you by accident. He picked you because you have the one thing Marcus and Derek don't." "What's that?" "Nothing to lose," Liam said. "Now get in the car. We have a party to crash." 45 minutes later, the atmosphere inside the executive suite of Pendleton Tower was one of raucous celebration. Marcus Cole sat in the massive leather chair behind the CEO's desk, Sarah's desk. He had his feet propped up on the mahogany surface, crossing his ankles. He was holding a crystal tumbler filled with amber noir, a whiskey that cost $4,000 a bottle. Across the room, Derek Sterling was popping the cork on a bottle of vintage champagne. The foam spilled over his hands and he laughed, licking it off his fingers. "To the new era," Derek shouted, raising the bottle. "To the Cinderella story coming to a tragic end." Marcus smirked, swirling his drink. "God, did you see her face when security grabbed her? I thought she was going to faint." "She's weak," Derek said, walking over to pour Marcus a glass. "She always was. I carried her for 7 years, you know. She would have been nothing without me. And now she's going to prison. Poetic justice, really." "You sure the police are en route?" Marcus asked. "Just got a text from my contact at the precinct." Derek confirmed, checking his phone. "They're issuing the warrant now. They'll pick her up at her apartment or under whatever bridge she's sleeping under within the hour. By tomorrow morning, Sarah Jensen will be trading her Versace for an orange jumpsuit." "And the offshore accounts?" "Untraceable," Marcus said confidently. "The money she stole is sitting safely in a shell company. Once the heat dies down, we split it. 50-50, just like we planned." "I love it when a plan comes together." Derek took a swig of champagne straight from the bottle. "You know, I might actually buy that penthouse back. It'll be sweeter knowing she lived there." "You're a cruel man, Derek," Marcus chuckled. "I like it. I learned from the best." Boom! The sound was like a gunshot. The double mahogany doors to the office didn't just open. They were kicked open with such force that the wood splintered around the lock. Marcus jumped so hard he spilled whiskey all over his shirt. Derek dropped the champagne bottle. It shattered on the floor, sending shards of glass skittering across the Persian rug. Standing in the doorway was Sarah. She was still wearing the wetsuit, but she had slicked her hair back. Her makeup was gone, leaving her face bare, pale, and fierce. She didn't look like a victim. She looked like an executioner. Behind her stood Liam holding the battered notebook, and behind him were 4 large men in dark suits who were definitely not the building's regular security. "You're trespassing," Marcus screamed, scrambling to his feet. "Get out. Security. Where is security?" "Your security team has been relieved of duty," Liam said calmly, stepping into the room. "These gentlemen are private contractors, and they don't answer to you." "I'm calling the police!" Derek yelled, his voice cracking. He fumbled for his phone. "You're finished, Sarah. You're a fugitive." Sarah walked slowly into the room. She stepped right over the broken glass and spilled champagne. She didn't say a word. She just walked to the front of the desk and stared at Marcus until he instinctively sat back down, intimidated by the sheer voltage of her anger. "You think you're smart, Marcus?" Sarah said. Her voice was low, devoid of the trembling fear from the alley. "You think because you know numbers you know everything. But you forgot one thing. This was Arthur's building. He built it. He wired it. He loved it." "Arthur is dead," Marcus spat, regaining some courage. "And you're a thief." "Liam," Sarah commanded, never taking her eyes off Marcus. "Read the entry." Liam opened the notebook to the last page. He cleared his throat. Entry dated November 14th, 3 days before his death. Liam read, "I have confirmed my suspicions. Marcus is moving test deposits to the Caymans. He thinks I am too sick to notice. He is preparing a trap for whoever succeeds me. Therefore, I have engaged the Dead Man Switch protocol on the office mainframe." Marcus's face went the color of curdled milk. "What? That's a myth. There's no such thing." "Read the rest, Liam," Sarah said. "The protocol is a passive listening system," Liam continued. "It is hardwired into the smoke detectors and the visual sensors in the teleconference screen. It records all audio and video in the CEO's office, stored on an independent cloud server. It is dormant until activated by a specific voice command." The room went deathly silent. The only sound was the rain lashing against the panoramic windows. "And what is the command?" Marcus whispered, his eyes darting around the room. Sarah leaned over the desk, her face inches from Marcus's. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "The command is stripped for parts." As soon as she said the words, a high-pitched beep echoed from the ceiling. The massive screen on the wall behind the desk flickered to life. A robotic voice filled the room. "System activated. Uploading audio and video files from the last 24 hours to SEC Enforcement Division, FBI Cybercrimes Unit, and NYPD." On the screen, a progress bar appeared. "Upload 20%. 40%. "No," Derek gasped. "No, no, no." "It recorded everything," Sarah said, straightening up. "It recorded you admitting to the Photoshop. It recorded you bragging about guessing my passwords. It recorded Marcus talking about the shell company. It recorded you splitting the money." "Upload complete." "Turn it off!" Marcus shrieked, slamming his fist onto the keyboard. "Delete it!" "It's already gone, Marcus," Liam said, checking his watch. "And judging by the sirens I hear downstairs, the recipients have already opened the files." Derek looked at Sarah. Panic had completely consumed him. He looked at the door, then back at the window as if contemplating jumping. Then he lunged toward Sarah. "Sarah, wait! Listen!" He grabbed her hands, his palms sweaty and gross. "He made me do it, Marcus. He threatened me. He said he'd ruin my career. You know me, Sarah. You know I wouldn't do this to you. I love you. We're married. Divorced. Sarah corrected, yanking her hands away as if she had touched a hot stove. "We are divorced, Derek. But I can fix this." Derek babbled, tears streaming down his face. "I can testify against him. I can be on your side. Just tell them it was a misunderstanding. Please, Sarah. I'm sorry about the apartment. I'm sorry about Tiffany. She meant nothing. You're the love of my life." Sarah looked at him. Really looked at him. For years this man had been her whole world. She had worked double shifts to buy him suits like the one he was wearing. She had cried herself to sleep wondering why she wasn't good enough for him. Now seeing him begging, snot running down his nose, willing to throw his partner under the bus to save his own skin, she felt nothing. No hate, no anger. Just a profound, empty pity. "You know, Derek," Sarah said softly, "the saddest part isn't that you betrayed me. It's that you sold your soul for a lifestyle you never earned. You're not a businessman. You're just a cheap suit with nothing inside." The elevator doors pinged. A squad of police officers led by the chief of police himself swarmed into the room. "Marcus Cole Derek Sterling," the chief barked. "Hands where I can see them." "It was him!" Derek screamed, pointing at Marcus as the officers shoved him against the wall. "He's the mastermind. I'm just a witness." "Shut up, you spineless worm," Marcus yelled back as the cuffs clicked around his wrists. Sarah stood still in the center of the chaos like the eye of a hurricane. She watched as the man who had broken her heart was dragged away, weeping and pleading. He tried to catch her eye one last time, shouting her name, but she simply turned her back. When the doors finally closed, leaving the room quiet again, Sarah let out a breath she felt like she'd been holding for 7 years. She slumped against the heavy oak desk. Her legs felt like jelly. "You okay?" Liam was there instantly, his hand on her shoulder. Sarah looked around the office. It was messy. It smelled of spilled whiskey. But for the first time it felt like hers. "I need to call the Ohio plant," Sarah said, her voice trembling but strengthening with every word. "I need to tell them their jobs are safe. And then, I need to find a new CFO." She looked up at Liam. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind a raw, exposed honesty. "Liam," she said, "you came back. You risked your career, your reputation. For me." "Why?" Liam looked down at her. The professional mask he always wore had slipped. His green eyes were soft, filled with an emotion that terrified and thrilled her. "Arthur wrote one last thing in the journal," Liam said quietly. "On the very last page, last." "What did he write?" Liam reached into the notebook and turned to the final entry. He handed it to her. Sarah looked down at the shaky handwriting of the old man she had fed soup to. "To Liam, I am leaving my company to Sarah because she has a good heart. I am leaving Sarah to you because you need one. She is the best thing that ever happened to this city. Don't be an idiot. Don't let her be alone. She deserves a king, not a jester like Derek." Sarah looked up, tears spilling over her lashes. He wrote that. He did." Liam smiled. "And for the record, I was planning on coming back even before I saw the news. I couldn't focus in London. I kept thinking about you. About how you look when you're fighting for people. About how you smile when you think no one is looking." Liam stepped closer, closing the small distance between them. He reached out and gently brushed a wet strand of hair from her forehead. "I don't want to be your lawyer anymore, Sarah," he whispered. "I want to be the man who stands beside you." Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs. She reached up, placing her hand on his chest. He felt solid, real. "I think," Sarah whispered, "I'm ready to accept that resignation." Liam leaned down, and when his lips met hers, it wasn't like the rain in the alley. It was warm. It was electric. It was a promise. Outside, the storm had finally broken. The clouds were parting, revealing the glittering skyline of the city that Sarah Jensen now owned. But as she stood in the arms of the man who had saved her, she realized she had inherited something far more valuable than a billion-dollar empire. She had found her worth, and this time no one was ever going to take it away. Derek Sterling wanted a trophy wife and a quick fortune, but he ended up with a prison sentence and a lifetime of regret. He learned the hard way that you should never judge a book by its cover or a beggar by his coat. Sarah proved that true power isn't about the money in your bank account. It's about the integrity in your soul. In the end, the waitress served the billionaire exactly what he deserved, a cold plate of karma and a side of justice. What did you think of Derek's punishment? Did he deserve more jail time, or was losing everything to Sarah the ultimate revenge? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of twists, heartbreak, and triumph, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a drama. Thanks for watching.